following is a presentation of the Gear Radio Network.
You're listening to the Sabrecast, brought to you by Better Live Than Dead. And now your hosts, Brayton Wilson and Ryan Wolfe.
And with that, we welcome you to the Sabrecast, powered by Better Live Than Dead and the Gear Radio Network. This is Season 2, Episode 10. We're calling this one live from the Wolf Den because we just so happen to be live in my basement at my house. We're really cute like that. I am Ryan Wolfe at Wolf BLTD. Joining me live in the human flesh and not on the IndyCar Media Hotline, it's Brayton Wilson at BJ Wilson WGR.
Howdy. What's going on? This is the Goat Head podcast?
We're the Goat Boys. We'll post
Goat
a photo.
Boys podcast.
It's the Goat Boys. Brayton's got his goat head on. I got my goat head on. We're hanging out with this autographed Pat LaFontaine jersey.
90s night was, last week, but
we were born in the 90s.
90s day.
We were born in the 90s, so it's always 90s day for us.
We're both born in the 90s.
Yeah.
Word.
Hell yeah. I don't know where we were going with that one, but killer bro.
We never really know what's going on.
You got that right. You know what I do know what's going on is that you can hear this podcast, all Gear Network podcasts, all Better Live Than Dead podcasts on betterlivethandead.com, Apple Podcasts, Bullhorn, Google Play Music, GearNetwork.com, iHeartRadio, Pandora, the Radio.com app, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcasts, you can get this podcast. And if not, we got a complaint box somewhere you can tell someone, and then
it's called the trash.
And then John will fix it for you. I don't really have a podcast written today. I've got a bunch of tabs popped up on my computer. To be quite honest, this podcast is more of like a last-minute thing. By last minute, I mean less than 24 hours ago, Brayton texted me and said, hey, what are you doing tomorrow? Let's hang out and talk about the Sabres and watch the Sabres game. So we're here now, live in the Wolf Den.
Plus, I had to come pick up my...
Shut your mouth.
My fantasy
There's
trophy.
a big fantasy football trophy sitting next to me, the Wolfensteiner Football League champion. We call it the Marv Levy Trophy.
And it's not yours, it's mine.
It was mine. I lost to Brayton in the finals because Saquon Barkley is a man. Between Saquon Barkley...
And Kenyon Drake.
Well, between Saquon Barkley, because I could have survived Kenyon Drake. Between Saquon Barkley and Michael Thomas, it was a wrap.
Yep.
My team, the Boston Dirt Dogs, defending champions...
Ohio Fighting Amish are now the defending champions.
Well, my team performed up to expectations. Mm-hmm. I did what I was supposed to do. Brayton's team kicked ass, and it was great to see.
I mean, you did have DeAndre Hopkins, who kind of had a poo-poo day.
I mean, I did, yeah. I just looking back real quick. Let me take a look here. It's the first time I've gone back since my untimely...
It took you that long to rewatch the highlights?
Yeah, I couldn't. I threw them in the gut. What do they say when they lose? We didn't watch that. We just threw the tape out. We don't got to watch that.
I can't watch that. It's too hard to take.
I mean, my team was projected 169, and I got 167. I know no one cares about fantasy football, but to put it into perspective, all of my players except for 3 had double-digit points, and then Brayton had a guy with 43, 33, and 31. So,
yep,
that'll do it. He even had a guy with 1 point, and he still won by 182.
Yeah, because DJ Moore got hurt in that
concussed, game. I believe.
He was concussed.
182-62 to 167-38. Brayton, congratulations.
Well, thank you. And it was a fun championship week.
It's always been fun.
Had a lot of fun this season, and
I gotta put some names on the trophy coming up here. I just didn't have that kind of cash.
And honestly, looking at your bench, looking at my bench, and everything like that, Drew Brees was on your team. The only person you really could have put in was Robert Woods, and even then, it's just like you're not putting in Robert Woods over DeAndre Hopkins on a normal circumstance.
I switched out Robert Woods for Brashad Perriman because I knew Woods might not have a good week, and Perriman still did really good.
Yeah, I should have put in. Jared Cook.
You don't got to should have put anybody in. You did the job. I'm the one that can say.
Hey, look. When I put my lineups together, I go for maximum capacity.
That's what I do. Absolutely.
And looking at my bench, I'm just like, man, I should have put Ryan Tannehill in, Phillip Lindsay, Jared Cook.
That's why I did the Brashad Perriman thing. But speaking of points, to bring it back to the Buffalo Sabres, our three big things brought to you by FortunePhoto.com. I don't know if they're going to be 3 big things. There might be a couple big things. I know we want to talk about the current status of the Sabres. We want to talk about the Rochester Americans. We know the Buffalo Sabres are playing here today in about a half an hour. It is 12:27 here on January 11th, 2020, for those who want to backdate this podcast. So right now, at the time of the podcast, I'm just going to hot and heavy right out the gate. The Buffalo Sabres, right now in the Atlantic Division, as my page loads here, The Buffalo Sabres are 5th in the Atlantic Division. They are 3-7-0 in their last 10 games. They are 19-18-7 on the season, 45 points in 44 games, on pace for, 84 points, something like that?
Yeah.
Not very good.
No.
They can't seem to win a game on the road. They're 6-13-4 on the road. But here's the scary thing. Boston had already run away with the division early on, so they're in. I mean, barring any sort of crazy catastrophe, they're in. Tampa Bay has won 9 in a row. They are 9-1-0 in their last 10 games.
Very good.
They have 56 points now, so they have woken up.
Toronto's woken up too.
They're probably in. Toronto 7-1-2 in their last 10 games. They're probably in.
They just had a nice long win streak. It snapped, but they did win in overtime. So
Buffalo's 9 points behind Toronto for the last Atlantic Division position. Looking over at the wild card right now, it's not much better for Buffalo. They, again, have 45 points. Ahead of them, the Rangers with 46 points in 43 games. Columbus, 50 points in 45 games. Florida has 51 points in 44 games. Philadelphia, 52 and 44. And Carolina, the winners of the Justin Williams sweepstakes, 54 points in 44 games. So it's looking like a long way to the top if you want to make the playoffs for the Buffalo Sabres. And things have not been going great for the Sabres lately, as we saw, Brayton. They lost Victor Olofsson. Thankfully, it's only an ankle sprain and not a high ankle sprain, because we saw what happened with Jack Eichel. You get that high ankle sprain, and you're probably done for – your effectiveness is probably done for the season.
Right, and it's a 6 to 8 week injury sort of timeline.
Where now it's likely that Victor Olofsson, the Sabres' second leading scorer, 16 goals, 19 assists, and 35 points in 42 games, will only miss about 11 games if he misses the exact amount of time.
Right, so as of right now, he'll be back in about 4 to 5 weeks.
He got lucky getting hurt when he did, because the schedule in the month of January is very light. Mm-hmm. The Sabres played 2 games the first week, 2 games the second week. They play 4 games. The 12th, the 14th, the 16th, the 18th have a week off.
Yep, that's the bye week. Then they have the All-Star break.
Yep, and then they play the 28th and 30th. So January is very light for the Sabres, but they don't seem to be doing so well as of late. And it's the same old song and dance, Brayton. Starting from the top down, Sabres can't score. If it's not Jack Eichel, they can't score. I mean, granted, looking at the goal numbers here, it's really true. I mean, you've got Eichel, 27 goals. It's amazing. He's having, right now, before Saturday's Vancouver game, Jack Eichel is projected 105 points in 81 games. They're looking 51 goals and 55 assists. All of those numbers would be career highs. And the Buffalo Sabres can't get out of the basement. I mean, you've got Victor Olofsson, we mentioned, he's injured. He's got 16 goals. Sam Reinhart, again, having a solid year. 14 goals, 21 points, 35 assists. Jeff Skinner, the only other Sabres goal scorer who has double-digit goals. He has 11, but he also is hurt as well. And then you look down the list, and it's ugly. I mean, Connor Sherry's been playing better, but he has 7 goals. Marcus Johansson been playing better. He has 6 goals. Gergensen has 6. VC has 5. I mean, it's just there's no depth to this team, and you wonder when Jason Botterill is going to get it, because it doesn't seem like – I mean, granted, he went out, finally traded Marco Scandella, goes out, picks up Michael Frolik for whatever he may do. Great, you made a move. But to me, the Frolik deal might end up being like a tree falling in the forest.
Right.
You know, do you actually hear it if you don't see it? But it seems to me, Brayton, again, same old song and dance. Yeah. Sabres can't score, and Jason Botterill, what is he going to do about it? It doesn't look like he's going to do anything.
Right. Yeah, I mean, unless you're on the Sabres top line with Jack Eichel, you can't score. The other night, no one wanted to shoot the puck except for Jack Eichel and Sam Reinhart, and it just was an absolute dreadful performance. It was just, guys just didn't look like they had any will to do anything on the ice, and it's, as you mentioned, same story, same you-know-what, different day.
You can say the poop word.
Yeah,
Same
I know.
Poop, different day.
I know, but I just, this is just me being my radio.
Brayton doesn't want to say poop
knowledge.
on the air, because if Brayton says poop on the air, then someone's got to clip it.
Well, I can say poop, but I definitely don't want to say the other word just because, hey, I'm a professional. I like to keep it that way.
I'm professional too, okay?
Yeah. Let's just I'm gonna keep my way. You do you. I'm gonna do me.
Don't talk to me like that.
Hey, we're just here. We're bros, just chilling out and
Goat Boys.
Yes, Goat Boys podcast. It's it's really just antagonizing. I don't even know.
It hurts.
It hurts to watch this team. It does.
I just watched Brayton's mind kind of break for a second. As I said, it hurts. Yeah.
I really don't know what more to say about this team other than like, what are we doing here?
Well, the thing is too is that when Olofsson comes back, he'll be on the top line, so it'll be Olofsson, Eichel, and Reinhart again.
Which here's the thing though, it's just like, okay, so you want a team that has a little more offense spread out. Okay, so what's the solution? You try Jeff Skinner on the second line, and you try and put him with Johan Larsson, which actually didn't work out too badly. Yeah. But you put him with other guys who can't score either.
I mean, I think the problem right now is that
you have to find better ways to try and distribute your offense other than because Jeff Skinner, I don't think Jeff Skinner really has ever been the type of guy to create his own offense himself. He's a guy that is a finisher. He'll finish a play, but even when he was in Carolina, I don't think he's the type of guy that can carry a line like Jack Eichel can, like Sam Reinhart supposedly can, who's been brought up as, oh, hey, he's a guy that can carry his own line on the wing. Let's see it for once.
Well, yeah,
let's do it. Why not?
I feel like maybe when Skinner comes back, you probably want to go Skinner, Eichel, and Olofsson, and then
right. But I don't even want to put Olofsson on the right wing.
I don't either. But here's the thing: Skinner by himself in the second line was he was look at. He's not going to go out and score 40 goals every season.
No, of course not.
But he was quietly having a very good season. Mm-hmm. Maybe not on the score sheet so much, but the fantasy stats were looking good for him, and that was his play was coming back before he got hurt.
Right, his 5-on-5 play has always been really good.
But my thing is if Skinner is not gonna drive that line himself, he'll go out and do damn good things because that's what Jeff Skinner does. He puts the puck in the net. That's why he's here for 8 years. But my thing is that if you have Skinner, Johansson, and Sherry or whatever, whoever you have in the second line, if you have Skinner and Johansson on that second line, even if you have Skinner, Johansson, and Reinhart, for instance, you have to be able to win face. I know we beat this over the head because when the Sabres were bad, it was always, well, face-offs matter. You got to win face-offs. Yes, you have to win face-offs so you can drive possession because it's easier to drive possession with the puck than if you're chasing guys around to get the puck.
Yep.
That's why the Gergensons, Larson, Oposo line is so good because they can get the puck, they can drive the play. They may not be the most skilled finishers. Oposo's better days are definitely past him, but they're able to drive play, and they're also able to play really good defense. And my cohort, Chad DeDominicis over at Die by the Blade, made a good point, saying, you know what? He had a good point recently in an article. Maybe the Sabres playing boring, ugly hockey is their ticket to winning because it's worked. Because they can't score goals. So maybe playing like old school Devils hockey where you 2 goals to win the game as long as you can slow them down, I guess, and stop them. But my point being, they've got kind of a top 6 conundrum because they've got a lot of players who can't seem to play without Jack Eichel. And I saw Dylan Cousins play a little in the World Junior Championships. You saw the highlights. He's going to be a special player.
Right.
But here's the thing. Are you ready to put Dylan Cousins in a Casey Middlestat situation? Granted, 2 totally different players, totally different skill sets,
different development paths.
But are you gonna be comfortable going into another season saying, look, our centers are going to be Eichel, Cousins, maybe Larson, and then someone else in the fourth line? Or are you going to say, no, we want to do this the right way. We want to build things the right way? Because, again, someone made a good point a couple days ago on Twitter, too. When the Sabres tanked, they really set themselves back a long ways because it's not like they took a couple guys out to like what the Maple Leafs did, where they had a bad season, got Austin Matthews, but they still had a bunch of pieces. The Sabres cleaned the cupboards bare, and they've done a very poor job of restocking them. I mean, granted, they've got a lot of good players who play very well in a specific role, but, I mean, no offense to Jimmy Vesey, but I have no interest in watching Jimmy Vesey play the first line with Jack Eichel and Sam Reinhart.
I mean, I was interested earlier in the year, but now it just doesn't interest me at all. And honestly, the question is now, who is going to fill in that slot for Olofsson and or Skinner, whoever it was going to be on that left wing anyway? I still think Reinhart should be on his own line. I think that, especially with him being in the final 30-plus games of a contract, he's got to be able to prove to management, prove to everyone that he's worthy of the next contract he's going to get. Because we talked about this, my coworker and I, Jeremy White at WGR, we talked about, okay, what is Sam Reinhart going to be worth in his next contract? I don't even know if we can really talk about what he's going to be worth right now because we're not seeing enough.
He puts points
from what
up.
he's going to be.
He puts a lot of points up. He puts a lot of points up.
But he
here's
plays
the
with
thing.
Eichel. That's the thing.
Exactly. You think to yourself, yeah, he's going to get paid because of his points. But if you're going to pay him, I guess if you're going to pay him top line dollar, can he be a guy that plays like top line talent? And I guess that's. I'm not talking bad about Sam Reinhart because I believe he's a fantastic player, and if the Sabres get rid of him, they're worse off without him than they are with him.
Right.
But
you have to find a way to replace him.
But again,
you have
solution. You have to figure something. At some point in time, you got to start collecting more talent because it seems to me like the teams that are very good have those fringe top 6 players playing in their bottom 6, where the Sabres have definite bottom 6 players playing in their top 6.
You're not going to win hockey games too many times that way.
And again, I feel like I know that's obvious. I know no crap, obviously, but that's where it is. It's like with the defense. Like you look today, you've got McCabe, Ristolainen. We've seen that so many times. We know it doesn't work. Yet they keep going back to the woodshed on that one. Yep. I'm a huge fan of the Darlene Montour and the Pilot Jokiharju pairings. But again, it's one of those situations where I don't understand what Jason Botterill sees. Like, I know Evan Rodriguez is back in the lineup today. Maybe they're trying to showcase him, or maybe they're sitting Bogosian out because they're going to trade him. I know the rumored trade for the longest time has been there's a potential Bogosian for a Galchenyuk trade that was talked about, and maybe that's going to happen soon.
I don't think so anymore because Pittsburgh lost Jake Gensel.
Absolutely.
They still don't have Sidney Crosby, so Galchenyuk's going to get the ice time.
My thought is that when Crosby comes back and they've got to clear a spot, I saw something about that in passing. I didn't really look too much into it. I'm just throwing. Look at me throwing. Right. Being a rumor monger.
You're just throwing stuff against the wall, seeing if it sticks.
But again, my thought process here is that, again, we talked about this last podcast. You got to not be afraid. With the Sabres season circling the drain at this point, because they would need a relatively big stretch of games where they've got to be good.
They have to go St. Louis Blues style.
Exactly.
At the end of the year in order to make the playoffs.
And at this point, I almost wonder if it wouldn't be smart to pull the trigger on, if you don't want to trade Ristolainen, trade McCabe. If you don't want to trade McCabe, trade Ristolainen. Make a big deal, shake things up a bit, and bring some new bodies in to see if you can spark something. Because what you got going on right now isn't working. Maybe Michael Frolik comes in and plays great second-line minutes and is a great penalty killer and really helps out. And I think that was a good risk to take because at this point, you took Scandella, who wasn't going to play, and you went out and got a guy who can maybe help you now.
Right, and Scandella probably wasn't going to last the season here anyway. You were most likely going to move on from him. He probably wasn't going to come back in free agency. You just,
So instead of trading for a 5th-round draft pick or a 4th-round draft pick in February, trade him now and go get someone who can maybe help you now.
Right.
In worst-case scenario, if Frolik doesn't work out,
you just move him at the deadline.
I'm sure someone would go, you know what, this guy has struggled with a bad Buffalo team.
He struggled in Calgary, which, they were just giving him whatever minutes, penalty kill minutes.
But what's important in the playoffs? If you have a veteran winger who can play very important penalty-killing minutes, there you go. Stick him in your bottom 6, you're fine to go.
Yeah, right.
He's played 831 NHL games. Does not happen by accident for sure. So
right, yeah. Well, we'll see. I think the Frolik deal was just fine. I didn't have a problem with it at all. But obviously, we need to see more from a guy like Frolik, and it's not just Frolik. We need to see more from everybody in this lineup. The offense, quite frankly, has just. It feels like that they are just playing stale hockey right now, and it's just the same rut that they've been digging themselves in for the past several years now.
Yep.
They're just going to keep spinning their tires, thinking, "Oh, we're making progress, we're doing this," and again, what are we doing here? What is going on here that is making us believe or anyone believe that this team's going to get any better than they are? It is really, really tough to find answers to say, all right, Sabres have got pieces. They seem to have a coach that, while he hasn't had too much success in proving that he's a proven winner as a coach, he speaks a good language to the players, and they seem to respect him. They seem to get his message across several times. But at the same point, execution and how you go about your game, that is the biggest issue with this team, and I just don't think they have the talent. And not only that, but they keep bringing back the talent that has been unsuccessful for several years. What makes you think that some of these guys are all of a sudden going to change now? And that's the mindset that I think a lot of us have been in with this team, And they just don't see that. They don't see what's going on, and that's frustrating.
Yeah, I don't sometimes understand. It's like they said, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and expecting different results. And that's what it feels like with the Buffalo Sabres. I mean, looking right now at the at Money Puck, just looking at some of the best lines in the National Hockey League when it comes to expected goals, offensively, again, I think they're in the top 30 now of lines in the National Hockey League. Gergensons, Larson, Oposa, they're doing their job. They're doing a fantastic job. They match up against, we saw it a couple nights ago, they were handling Connor McDavid and made Connor McDavid look incredibly frustrated and not necessarily average, but they held him down. And that's the kind of stuff you need. But then you need other players on the team to pick up the slack. And I mean, I don't necessarily think that there's been an affinity with going 11-7. I don't think, for a couple games maybe, but that doesn't do anything for your team. I like what Rasmus Asplund has done in an expanded bottom six role. Curtis Lazar has looked like he's got something there, but the problem is that you almost have to ask these guys to do more. You look at Rasmus Asplund, for example. He's played, let me scroll down here really quick. Rasmus Asplund has played 16 games. He's got 3 points in 16 games. 1 goal and 2 assists. You almost have to ask him for more because at this point in time, no one else is doing anything. And that's the hard part.
Right, and Asplund is still a young guy.
Exactly.
I know he was drafted early in the second round in 2016 and has shown some good promise in his game, especially coming over last year to Rochester, especially in the second half of his year. But, he's not a player that is the type of guy that's going to score a ton of points for you. He's not a scorer necessarily. He's a guy that's really solid down the middle, two-way guy. He can put up production, but, it's not like you can rely on him to be a top six forward in this league. He's not going to go be a guy that can go out there and get a goal when you need him to. He's a guy that's going to go out there that can put up the production, but he's more of the guy that you can rely on to be a solid, really shutdown guy in your own end and then go drive play in the other end. But points aren't necessarily going to be there with Asplund. That's just how he's always been. I still think he has a future with his team. I don't think that it's a situation where I don't want him here. I'd rather keep Rasmus Asplund. You've got some other decent prospects, but at the same point, it's just like,
it's just incredibly frustrating because, like I said, you're putting these young guys.
They're relying on production and points from players that aren't necessarily the guy that is going to get you those points.
Like you look at Casey Middlestat, perfect example. He had been taking on water for months, and they just kept pushing him out there in the second line and just letting him drown. And you saw him in Rochester. He's been scoring a handful of goals the past couple of games, but those first few games, he was out there looking completely lost because you just killed this kid's confidence. So you go out and take Rasmus Asplund, throw him on the first line. Great, you're playing with Eichel and Reinhart, but that's not good for the kid's psyche, for the kid's development. If you're like, go out there and drown against, go play top minutes, it's a great opportunity.
Yeah.
And then he looks like he's completely out of his element because he is. Because, again, despite the fact that he's been great in Rochester, these kids are still developing. They're still finding their way.
Right, and they're kids.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's almost like Jason Botterill has put the Buffalo Sabres in this position because what has he done out there to make this team better?
He hasn't done much, that's for sure.
And the frustrating thing, too, Brayton, is just like looking at Cap Friendly, for instance. And we haven't even talked about the defense because we could be here for hours on the defense. But, this is the most frustrating thing. Next year, right now, not including if I include restricted free agents currently on the roster, the Sabres have Jack Eichel, Kyle Oposo, Marcus Johansson, Sam Reinhart, Evan Rodriguez, Rasmus Asplund, and Curtis Lazar. So there's a big chunk of players right now on this roster who likely will not be here next year, offensively.
Right.
So not only do you not have goal scorers, but you also have absolutely no consistency offensively. So how are you expected to be effective if you're just cycling in and out these fringe players who, if Connor Sherry played a bottom, a third line role, he's probably playing third or fourth line on a good team.
Yeah.
And again, it's a situation where he's in Buffalo and he's got to play out of his element and do too much.
And he's expected to put up the points, and he can't put up the points that everyone expects him to. You look at some of these other players. Kyle Oposo, he was signed to that big contract expecting to continue to put up the production that he did when he was in New York with the Islanders. comes here, and the production has been not there.
I mean, if he wasn't getting paid $6 million a year, if he was getting paid like
$3.5,
like Connor Sherry, Sam Reinhart money, like 3 to 3.65, you'd be like, wow, this guy's a steal because he's been so good in that third line. But stuff like that hurts you, and then you have to get more creative with players or get lucky with the Sabres got incredibly lucky with Victor Olofsson. Let's not get it twisted.
Well, I mean, it also helps that Olofsson was a guy who played professional hockey in Sweden for 4 straight years.
Absolutely.
And especially in the last 2, he was playing on one of the best hockey teams in Sweden with Frölunda.
But you almost have to get lucky with guys like that, or you have to, let Tage Thompson drown like you did with Casey Middlestat, because what else do you have?
Yeah.
You're not bringing up. Sorry, Brayton. You're not bringing up Remy Ellie. You're not bringing up.
No.
You're not bringing up. I don't know. I'm looking down the list here. You're not bringing Dalton Smith back. Although kudos to him for getting that little paycheck.
And let's make one thing straight. The Dalton Smith situation. Okay, good for Dalton Smith. I'm glad that he got the contract and he got the chance to appear in a game.
I think that was a panic move for sure.
But they signed him thinking like, he's going to bring some toughness and grit. The team lost the game 5-4 when they had a 4-1 lead still.
And he played a minute 26.
In a minute 26. And all he was pretty much doing was going out there and trying to pick fights pretty much. And they said, oh, no, that's not why he's up here. We brought him up here for, because he's done so well opening up space and being good on the forecheck. Well, then if that's the case, then put him out there to do that reason. Don't tell him to go out there and fight. And I mean, I'm not sure if he was told to go out there and fight, but don't put him out there for 126 and then send him down to Rochester shortly afterwards.
Yeah, that was a waste.
It's a waste of a contract space. Just sign a guy who has never put up any sort of relevant production in the AHL, and you give him a contract for what? Just to go out there and just look tough?
I love how mad you got about that, because that's exactly how I feel about it.
I hate the fact that I have to get mad like this, but there's so many people, there's been instances where this team needs to play old time hockey. They got to get some plumbers on this team that are willing to put in the work. Yeah, guess what? Dalton Smith is a plumber because he goes out there and fights. He goes out there and may open up some things, but when you're going into a situation here in Buffalo where you're playing with a bunch of guys that still can't score, that can't put up any production, it's useless to sign a guy like that to a contract.
I mean, looking at it, if you want your team to play hard and play heavy hockey, great. That's fine.
But it's the players that are on your roster that have to make a difference.
But here's the thing. You can play heavy hockey when your team can score goals.
Right.
It doesn't serve you any benefit to have a guy come up for a minute 26. I mean, granted, look,
you're wasting a roster spot at that point.
Congratulations, he got an NHL deal.
You're wasting a contract spot at that point.
He got his first game. He got a nice paycheck. Probably got a real nice little paycheck for that week he was up. But again, I mean, next year you're probably going to see Dylan Cousins either in Buffalo, or I don't know if he can go to Rochester, but
he can't. He's got one more year left of eligibility.
So either he'll be in Buffalo,
he'll be back in Lethbridge or wherever he's playing.
I've got a feeling that they might force that one. At least give him 10 games.
Yeah,
9 games.
I mean,
you've got R2 Ruotsalainen who just came back from injury. He looked good.
He scored a hat trick yesterday.
Came back,
and the one goal was pretty fantastic, through the legs and everything.
Maybe Middlestat develops. You got
Middlestat's ready.
Matej. I can never say his name.
Matej Picard.
Pecker. I remember that. I'll never forget that day when he got drafted. And Brain's like the Sabres select Pecker, and I was like, oh my god, I'm going to fall off my chair.
Yeah.
But again, down in Rochester,
I've had more embarrassing moments than that. Don't worry.
I understand. We all have, yeah. Especially on the radio. But looking at right now, like we mentioned, Rochester, man. And Rochester was doing great, but Rochester, again, same thing with the Sabres. They've fallen on hard times. They've won, I think we said, Brayton, 3 out of their last 10 games. They've fallen completely kind of off the map. The goaltenders have fallen back there. The goaltenders in Rochester are kind of like the goaltenders in Buffalo.
I'm sorry. I really want to get off the topic, but I can't now. Can we just go back to the topic of just like when they brought in Dalton Smith and just how everyone wants to whine, complain, and yell
by
for
all means.
Team toughness? Players like Dalton Smith, players like just the way that people want to complain about how this team lacks toughness, and they need a player like Marcus Foligno back in this lineup. Marcus Foligno, since he left Buffalo, hasn't done diddly you-know-what in Minnesota. Those type of players are a dying breed in the NHL. You want to know what you need for team toughness is you need the type of players that can go out there and put up the production, but also stand up for themselves, for their teammates. You see, like Sam Reinhart, he's done it a few times, and then again, you've seen it on the flip side. You see him go out there, and you see him defend a teammate. Jack Eichel, Victor Olofsson. The game against Anaheim where he goes after the Carter Rowney who rammed Olofsson into the boards in a really dirty way. Reinhart went in and responded. That was great. That's exactly what we need from this team from top to bottom. And you're not getting that on a consistent basis. You're not getting that at all from some players. Some guys get thrown around, and then everyone is just kind of just skating around there, not doing anything, and it's just like, well, I'm just going to skate around. If you want the team toughness, if you want it so badly, then it's the players that are on this team that can produce offensively and however you want to see this team produce, but they also have to go out there and be able to stand up for themselves. That is the only way you're going to win in this hockey league. You do not bring in these guys anymore that pretty much just go out there and are elephants on skates and just looking to pick fights and looking to... I just can't, because I get these calls all the time on WGR. I get them, screen them, everything like that. The only way you're going to really be a tougher team is if you get toughness from top to bottom from players sticking up for each other in the locker room, on the ice, off the ice. That is the only way you're going to get team toughness to be any better with this team.
Like, I don't remember what game it was, but Jack Eichel took that high hit, and then immediately you turn around and there's a fight.
Yes.
Like, even if Jake McCabe was it Jake McCabe who?
Yeah.
Jake McCabe, even though he got
it was the Lightning game.
Yeah, even though Jake McCabe got
it wasn't even really a high hit, it was a fine hit.
It was a check, but here's the thing.
That's the stupid thing, though.
But that's a perfect example of what you're saying.
Yeah.
If you stand up for your teammates, it doesn't matter if it's Jake McCabe getting his ass beat because
you don't need to fight, though. That's the thing.
Jake McCabe kind of got his ass beat on that one.
He did.
But it's one of the situations where you say to yourself, hey, you know what? I'm trying to look up something, I'm sorry. You say to yourself, hey, you know what? If you're going to try to hit Jack Eichel, this is what's going to happen. Because if you start to do that, then people won't fuck with you. They won't mess with you.
You could swear. I don't care.
I'm looking here right now, looking on hockeyfights.com to take a look here, and old friend Nick Delorier leads the NHL with 10 fights.
Ugh.
Ex-Buffalo Sabre prospect Brendan Lemieux second with 5. So again, fights don't happen very often in the National Hockey League anymore.
And those type of players, again, are a dying breed. They are not sticking in the NHL.
You've got to have some talent.
You look at Anaheim, you look at the Rangers. Those two teams are bad teams right now. They're not good hockey teams.
I mean, the Rangers have... We talk about the Sabres being bad. The Rangers have 46 points in 43 games. Anaheim is dead last with 39 points in 44 games.
I just can't believe we're still talking about this kind of crap.
It is absolutely unreal to see. I mean, yeah, if you want to have a guy who skates around and nails people, fine. That'll be great. But they also have to score. And that's because, again, what's the point of bringing Dalton Smith up to put him in the lineup if he's not going to score? He's going to be just a cone on the ice.
Right. And that's pretty much – and that's the embarrassing point. It's just like he was talked about and like, nope, we're not bringing him in here to try and pick a fight. We're not trying to intimidate the Lightning because they've hurt a couple of our top players. It's funny too. Not a top player.
It's funny
Rasmus Dahlin is a top player. But it's just like we're bringing this guy in to open things up and to be good on the forecheck, yada, yada, and you play him 126, he goes out there to pick a fight. That just screams the fact where it's just like, we need toughness on the ice.
It's really
we need
funny
a guy
too.
that is not going to be afraid to get in someone's face. The only way you're going to do that and be any better at that is if it's a total team effort in that way.
It's really funny because...
And I can't even believe that we're making this much of a ruckus about it, but I just needed to get it off my chest because I feel like I have not gotten the chance to say really anything relevant to it about this in like any sort of way. So
you're absolutely okay, but it's one of those things too where teams like Tampa will go out there with their skill and they'll still hit you, and then stuff like that happens where it's, it is unfortunate what happened to the two Sabres players that got injured by
Look at Tampa Bay. They're a good hockey team.
Here's the thing. They'll goat you into doing dumb stuff like that. Where teams like Buffalo will go, well, we need to have tough players. We need to have Dalton Smith in the lineup to scare them. And then what happens? Buffalo gets an early lead. They had the momentum, and then Tampa just completely steamrolled them.
That's when they started to use their skill and use their smart hockey play and just dominate Buffalo. Jack Eichel at that point was trying to carry the team, and he got that goal, that shorthanded goal that everyone's still kind of talking about. It was a great goal.
First of his career.
And just then after that, it seemed like they got too comfortable. They started to relax, like, oh, yeah, we're going to, Tampa Bay, they've been playing well, but, we're better than they are right now. And it's just like It's that kind of stuff, too, that just drives me up a wall, is when they get too comfortable. And then the Florida game last week, you get out to a 3-0 lead, and then at that point it seemed like, all right, let's just sit back and hold this lead.
Park the
Why?
bus. Yeah, no bus parking is necessary in that one.
Buffalo is filled with two teams right now that when they get a comfortable lead, they like to sit back and say, all right, let's just carry this lead all the way to the end. Let's do it. Bills game in the playoffs last week, and I hate to bring it up because I still get mad at that too. You're up 16-0, and that certainly wasn't good enough, but you easily could have gone up 20-0. You could have been up 21-0 before halftime, and you blew it.
Micah,
we need to move on because
Micah McCurdy. Well, I was going to say we can wrap this up because the Sabres game starts in 2 minutes. I'm going to get it hooked up here. Micah McCurdy on Twitter, Ineffective Math, points out that coming into today's games, the Atlantic playoffs are roughly expected to be about 94.3 points. The Sabres expected to only get 85.3 points. So again, I think Botterill gets a pass this season. Obviously, Kruger does as well, but you got to think that Botterill has to get past that. I guess to wrap this up, you got to think that Botterill needs to get past his fear of making another Ryan O'Reilly trade and just go out there and try to make this team better.
The problem is we're seeing almost exactly. I mean, obviously, the Tim Murray circumstance in his last year, Jack Eichel gets hurt early, they flounder early, and then they try to make this comeback, and then it just floundered at the end too. This is a situation very similar, though, where it's just like, are you just going to sit and watch this team continue to play the way they are and struggle and not produce? Or are you going to try to do something about it? And right now, honestly, Jason Botterill actually can't do anything about it because of the salary cap and some other issues. Rochester's kind of a mess right now.
Isn't it really funny, too, how but he talked about how he's like this big salary cap guy, and then he comes in and totally just jacks up the salary cap even worse than it already was.
Right.
I mean, granted, after this year, like we mentioned, a lot of stuff will open up.
Right, and like Bogosian will be off the books.
But still.
I mean, I still think you have to question whether Kyle Oposo is going to be in the future picture or not. I still think that, I mean, that contract is hard to move, obviously. I don't think you're going to be able to trade it, but at this point, maybe you do take the buyout and you just chew on it. I know I looked up the buyout the other day, and the numbers aren't pretty, but still, I mean,
because the only other option that you're going to have is either you ride it out, you buy him out, or you try to dump him to Seattle, which I don't think you're going to be able to do that. But I know teams are going to be a little harder on Seattle now than they were before. But
with Vegas, I mean, they're not going to be willing to.
So right now,
trade what they did.
If the Sabres were to buy out Kyle Oposo at the end of the season, just for Brayton's thing here, it would cost the Sabres $15 million. So they would save $3 million. His cap hit would be $6. Let's see. I don't know how to.
Yeah, you'd save $2 million the first year. You'd save $1 million the second year. You'd save $3 million the third year, and then in the last 3 years of that buyout, it would cost the Sabres $1 million.
Oh, so the buyout cost would end up being it would be 6 years at $1 million a season.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah, it's
because it's two
right.
thirds.
You're saving in the.
It might be something. It might be something.
In a 3-year span, you're saving $6 million, but then in the last 3 years after the contract would have expired, you're then having a $1 million cap hit against Oposo.
Yeah, especially if you're looking to blow it up. I mean, you've got
You have to free up cap space somehow. And
speaking of buyouts,
it's not pretty. Again, it's not pretty, but at the same point, you might have to do it just because you have to move on from certain pieces.
You did it to yourself.
Exactly. And again, this is Jason Botterill's doing with Tim Murray's previous sins. This is a Tim Murray contract.
Well, that's why I said that this offseason is going to be very important for the Buffalo Sabres because there are so many players that are up for new deals, RFAs, whatever it may be. But I wanted to say, speaking of buyouts, take a look to your left, Brayton. You see that hockey stick on the wall that you gave me that one day, that Billy Leno hockey stick?
Yeah.
We have to pour one out for our man over wherever he lives now because
he's over in Finland.
After this season is over, Billy Leno is officially off the books. Granted, he's already off the books because it's $0, whatever. But he's officially cap friendly. Will officially remove him from the Sabres cap page after this season.
Cody Hodgson still has 3 years after this year. Christian Ehrhoff is going to be on the books for a very long time.
2029 or something like that, right?
Something stupid crazy like that.
Good Lord. Well, hey, that's a good place to wrap this podcast up, right? I think talking about bad decisions.
I don't.
Bad decisions are going to continue because we're going to watch the Buffalo Sabres.
I have so much that I really do truly want to talk about, but right now it's like okay, we can't talk about it right now because it would be way too early. We'll talk about it later.
Oh, sorry, I put my foot on your phone.
Oh God, you're fine.
We've got maybe we'll do something around the All-Star break, and we can start to look back at the Sabres season, and we can point towards the trade deadline and kind of see how we would shape the future of the team, because I don't think talking about the games is going to be too much fun.
No, I mean,
Jack Eichel's having a career year. They're wasting it. Rasmus Dahlin has come back into his own.
And they're wasting his entry-level contract just like they did with Jack, just like they did with Sam Reinhart.
Yeah. And the thing is, again, like we said before, you're going to have these guys around for a long time. Dahlin's going to be around for a long time. Eichel's going to be around for a long time. Skinner's around for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But the more players you sign on bigger tickets, the harder your job is going to be, the more creative you have to be.
Mm-hmm.
These guys aren't going to be cheap forever.
No.
So either, you got to keep them, you got to trade them, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But you have to be sure that this is what you want to do.
Right. And maybe this offseason would be the ideal time to get a Dahlin contract signed, because it would probably be cheaper. It'd be almost like a Nathan McKinnon situation where, sure, you could pay a guy. Hopefully the thought is you pay a guy X amount of dollars with the thought that in that long-term deal, you'll get the most out of that, like Nathan McKinnon, where he's an MVP type of caliber player, and he's only costing the Avalanche $6 million.
Yep.
That's a steal of a contract. The same thing with Kucherov a couple years back. Holy crap, this guy's putting up incredible numbers.
Is Stevie Wide down in Tampa Bay, man. He must have put something in the water back in the day, because those guys were they were taking team-friendly contract after team-friendly contract after team-friendly contract, man. But Brayton, I appreciate you joining me in the.
Well, I'm happy to come out here and join you. It's always great to hang out.
It's always nice to see you, Brayton. I think I made him uncomfortable there.
We've got what?
I looked directly in his eyes when I said that.
40. They've played 44 games, 45.
It's another
games
season.
This year.
It's another waste of a season.
44 games. They've got 38 games left to go, and I'm already thinking, okay, how are these 38 games going to go? Are we going to be?
Did you see that?
Did you see that here again? Just with our heads in our hands.
Speaking of the Sabres being bad, did you see that the clip on Twitter? The Bon Jovi. Whoa, we're halfway there. Whoa, Alex Lafreniere, or however you say his last name.
I did not see that, no.
Dude, oh my God, I almost peed.
Lafreniere.
Yep, yeah. So it was they were like, whoa, we're halfway there.
Wait, was this the Sabres? Someone from the Sabres, or was it?
No, someone took a TSN clip and made it, and it was, I damn near peed my pants. I'll have to see if I can find it.
Hey, at least if the Sabres finish with the top 10 pick this year, there are some really good players in the top 10.
I'm sick of hearing that.
I've already heard from a couple people saying that this year's class could be just as good as some of the. I mean, like 2015 had a deep class. 2016 was all right. So they said that this class could be, near that echelon of the 2003 draft class, which is arguably the best class to ever come out for the NHL. I'm not going to go ahead and say, hey, this is the class that is the best ever or anything like that. We should get excited. It's just one of those things where, hey, there are some players that are going to be potentially really good in this league that are in the top 10.
Absolutely. I'm going to go try to find this tweet here. So, either way, we're turning the Sabres game on. We appreciate you tuning in. I am Ryan Wolfe. Brayton is at BJ Wilson WGR. We are Better Alive Than Dead.
And, of course, you are not.
Let's try that again. We are the Sabrecast.
We are the Sabrecast, and you are not the Sabrecast. And this is the Goat Boys podcast, and you're not the Goat Boys.
With that being said, we will talk to you sometime very soon. As always, go Sabres, I think, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
The preceding presentation has been brought to you by the Gear Network.